York's classic rock, Q1043.
Man, one of my favorite actors, one of the men who makes me laugh hilariously with everything he does, but maybe not so much in this play. Michael McKean, welcome to Q104.3.
Thank you. Nice to be.
This, one of my favorite plays in the world,
I know.
Glengarry Glen Ross.
You,
Brilliant.
I feel the same way. I saw it the first time I saw it in Chicago, 1986, with Peter Falk as Shelley, Joe Mantegna playing Ricky, the role that he
Perfect.
created here.
Right.
And there was a London production first. Pinter got put on, and then they opened in New York, big hit with Bob Prosky playing Shelley. But Peter had taken over at this point, and it was like going to church, man. These actors were so great. And this play, this out of left field, I've never seen anything like this kind of play, you know? And I'm thinking, I'm loving it. I'm thinking, there are a lot of people who are going to hate this.
Well, but as I emailed everyone, I've directed Mamet. You just had it's all about timing. You have to hit the gas. If you stop, the engine stalls out. You have to just go because it's the rhythm of it is the magic of it, and you guys own it. Kieran Culkin, a perfect Ricky Roma, Bob Odenkirk, who I know is a wonderful actor and funny, but the pathos, the
Oh,
heartbreak of Shelley
it's
Levine,
a
you have
crushing
to
performance.
really, he nails it.
Oh, it's a crushing performance. John Piricello, who plays the Mark, who plays
Yes,
Mr. Jim Link at the basic the basic victim,
right.
and the patsy that they kind of put on. They kind of double team him in this amazing scene. And those guys, we can't see that scene because me and Howard Overshawn are up in the cops area. So
Right.
we can't see it, but it's like listening to this great radio play every night as we watch them work with the audience. And that's the other thing about Mamet. He's built so that it's very specific and very precise, but it's also not dumb about what the audience is going to do.
Right.
In other words, we find pockets, we find laughs where there's pauses, and we wouldn't have known it except for the way the script is laid out. But the audience isn't there every single time. They've been amazing. These are some of the best houses I've ever played,
Really? Well, I
and
mean, every
I
show
love this
you're
play.
acting with an actor who you never worked with before, which is the audience. And that
Absolutely
thing
right.
that kills 12 shows in a row and you do it that 13th time and it's crickets and you go, did I
Yeah,
fuck
yeah,
that up? What?
I know. I did Hairspray for 6 months in 2004. I followed Harvey into the part, and Harvey was amazing. I mean, he's
Sure.
loved this man. So he just, he gave me all kinds of advice. Just regular underwear. Don't worry about. Don't worry. Things like that. Okay, okay. And he was just, took me under his wing. He was awesome. Um, but he said there's this one line in the show. It's like Edna is thinking, let's see, trying to find a manager for her daughter. Let's see who handled the Gabor sisters. Well, who didn't? And Harvey said, I wrote that line. I wrote that line. I won't tell you every line I wrote, but I wrote that line. And I
Absolutely.
said, well, it works every night, right? Absolutely every time. So I went on, and he was right, man. I'm cruising. I'm cruising. One day, there's an air pocket there at the end. I go, and I felt like saying, how do you not laugh at that?
Right. Excuse me a minute. I'm breaking the fourth wall. What the hell is wrong?
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
But this is I've done theater my whole life, grew up artsy fartsy kid from Brooklyn and you as well. But this is sacrilege to say, but Arthur Miller has always been a playwright who wags his finger in your face to me. Death of a Salesman, this legendary thing, but attention must be paid. Here's the thing. I never believed Willie Loman was a great salesperson. Shelley
well, it's
Levine
not about,
is a great salesperson in the show. He's selling Williamson. He's selling himself. And that
yeah.
even with as he's drowning, I see everybody's strengths of how they approach people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it really heartbreaking as opposed to sort of a Greek tragedy.
Well, another major difference is obviously that Death of a Salesman is not about the game. It's not about the selling. It really isn't. It's anecdotal that he was a great salesman. But it's we're only seeing it from his point of view. We're only hearing it as an anecdote. So it's just, and because it's about the family. None of these guys have a family we can even imagine in Glengarry. Patrick Marber and I, of course, there's no hints, but Patrick Marber and I, uh, we went out and had Chinese lunch, of course. And I think he probably had a dinner with everybody or lunch with everybody individually. So anyway, we had a really, really nice chat. This is like fourth day of rehearsal or so. And we just started talking, and we both agreed that George is a lonely guy, that he was probably married for a chunk of time a long time ago, and it wasn't working out. A lot of heartbreak, a lot of drinking. And now he's like kind of living this low key second gear life until it ends, you know. And
Yeah.
he may have something that he goes home to. He may just have the WQXR, classical station going. He may listen to golden oldies. I don't know. But that there is the character of his home life, while the show isn't about that, obviously, it's not about any of their private lives. We know that Shelley has a daughter. We have no idea about anybody else. Moss could be anything, you know. Guy goes up
I
to Wisconsin. I assume he's got a girlfriend up there.
I emailed our division president. I said, you have to get every salesperson at iHeart to see this play to understand the depth of despair, the stress of it, the
Yeah.
anxiety of it. That
Well, the
that
other
the
thing is, now
world knows.
you grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you remember a guy named Bob Lewis on
Oh, of course,
WABC.
Babalu. Yeah.
Babalu. Now, Babalu's midnight to four show or whatever it was, I guess it had to be midnight to six. Is that possible?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy hell. So anyway, but he had the night slot and he was sponsored by, I think solely sponsored by for several of the hours, because I was up all night. Um, this, boy, if anyone could help us out, it was a land for sale in Florida. It was exactly
It
premier
was
property.
Glengarry Glen Ross.
It was Glengarry of the Air, long before there was a play, long before Hammett worked in the real estate office. But it was every night, and he would do six commercials during the show. And then he did weather and da 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 and the top 40. And a couple of golden oldies, It's just that's what I listened to because that's WABC was all there was really
Right.
after
I mean,
NBC.
we listened to that. I grew up, 17 years at NEW FM, and as we
Really?
got to rock and
So
roll,
what years?
I was there 82 to 99. I came, towards after the gold.
Do you know
I learned,
Scotzo? Do you know
you know,
Scott Moody?
we mentioned that. I wanted you to repeat the story that the first time you heard the Beatles, you had
Oh,
told
not
the
the first
story. It was
time.
your sister at a dry cleaner in Rockville
Oh,
Center.
no, it
Am
was
I
with my
remembering
mom,
this?
dry cleaner in Glen Cove. Yeah.
Tell the story.
Well, that's that's kind
Well,
of
yeah, I
it.
just told it, but
Yeah, no. Well, the point is like that's the first time I heard the Beatles. I heard "I Want to Hold Your Hand," waiting for my mom to come out of the cleaners and like, oh, that's that story. Hilarious, right? So, I mean, everyone has that story. The first time we heard them, for those voices, that guitar, those guitars, and that drive, and it was like it was over. You know what I mean? But for the next 5 years, like we didn't know it, Scott Muni, every time he'd play, Hello, Goodbye from England, the Beatles. It's like, thank you, Scott. No, we got this now. We got the geography of this band. We got it
he
located.
he was our radio dad. He was everything. He was,
It's
you're
great.
Fats, I'm Fats. Paul McCartney was Fats. Like Babe Ruth, he didn't bother with names. Hey,
Yeah.
Fats. Joan Baez walks in the door. Hey, Fats. Just and it didn't matter.
What's the
But
derivation of that, dude? What was the guy thinking?
yeah, it just.
How'd he
I mean,
ended up? If you say Bud, I say okay. A
yeah.
lot of people say that, but Fats is
Is it? Does it come? The hipster '50s days, '60s. I. But that was instead of Babe Ruth called everybody kid. Hey, kid.
hey
So,
kid.
but I mean, what happened? '99. They decided there's no future. Rock and roll is dead.
Over.
Nobody cares
Dead.
about the Beatles or Led Zeppelin. And this station that was doing hard rock, that used to be the classical station, NCN,
Yeah.
flips to rock, and they just cherry picked us. They took Scott and the kid, and me, and Maria Melito and Mark Coppola from K Rock, and Carol Miller and Jim Kerr from PLJ, and said, "You're the guys. You're the people. Let's see if let's see if there's something here." And thanks God, 26 years later, the
Yeah.
fourth generation is listening to this. And the
No.
coolest thing is not us, but hey, Ken, what's that Teenage Wasteland song? We play it at practice every day, like, oh, God bless you. It
Yeah.
music, this music is a blue rose. When I do the Breakfast with the Beatles show, a third of the listeners are under 25.
Yeah.
It's so heartfelt. It's so real.
You know what? People still like Casablanca too.
Thank
It's
you.
like if it's on the money, it stays on the money, you know?
So this is a perfect moment to segue from Broadway to rock and roll. It is a date that I am palpitating in excitement with. Ladies and gentlemen, September 12th, is that correct? September
Yeah.
12th, Spinal Tap 2. What
The
the
end
end
con the end
continues.
continues. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going
They
to talk a
live.
lot about the specifics. I will say that we had a lot of fun in New Orleans, which is one of those re kind of redundant phrases.
If
If you
you
say you're
didn't,
in New
you need
Orleans, you're
a
going to have
therapist.
some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like uh, there are only two things I didn't like about New Orleans. And I love my parents had their honeymoon there. It's in the family. I mean, it's my folks from
Right.
Louisiana. And it is a beautiful city full of beautiful people. A lot of nonsense, like all cities have.
Exactly.
But boy, I've never been there during Mardi Gras before, and that is a pissa. It is
Oh,
so, and I thought, like an idiot, I thought, well, yeah, I've come down here for it's probably 2 days, right? 2 days of parades. No, it's 7 days of parades. And at the end of the evening, everyone goes home and continues the parade privately. You know what I mean? But it gets nice and quiet. They roll up the streets at 11, party goes indoors. And it was kind of a wonderful experience, and I do love that town.
Um, I just, what I've always tried to explain to people anytime I'm asked, and I mean it sincerely, outside of the self-combusting drummers, every single thing in that piece is a documentary. There's no scene that I don't know personally or have experienced some form of it. It's so universal that nobody can talk about it. You told this story, and I beg you to tell it one more time. Was it Aerosmith? You taking your kids to see Aerosmith, and you going backstage to meet the guys, and Steven Tyler was there. Does this strike a bell?
No, I think you're conflating two things. I took my son back to see backstage with the Chili Peppers when I
Okay.
introduced him in character at the Greek or the Universal Amphitheater. I'm not sure. Um, and no, and those they're super guys. But the Aerosmith is just every time we encountered Steven, because we kind of got into the mix a little bit, and he'd always just look at us and go, just it's too close, too close. And Ozzy said the same thing. Paul Schrader ran into Ozzy in Chicago, and Ozzy says, "This is how I'm sure this is exactly how it happened because I know Paul." He says, "Yeah, I'm working with Michael McKean here in Chicago." And Ozzy, who's that? They said, well, he's in this movie, Spinal Tap, and Ozzy said, oh, I don't like that. I didn't like that. And Schrader said, well, you're wrong. So
Well, so just I'm good friends with the guys in Blue Oyster Cult, where it's
really,
yeah,
Long
we're
Island guys,
yeah,
right?
Long Island guys, the shortest Jews in 5,000 years of history. I'm I'm 5'6", Michael. If they started a basketball team, I'm Elijah Wan. I've got the pace. We're all like this big.
No, I know.
But
Yeah, yeah.
but they were on the Black and Blue tour with Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult. And Eric
Wow.
Bloom
Okay.
told me that they did that. They had, little people coming out to dance and stuff, and there was a like a trap door that they would go into and go into a pit, and they had mattresses there. And Ozzy really wanted it, and Sharon wanted it, and Tony Iommi did not want it because he felt perhaps it was a bit too much. So he paid the roadies cash to take the mattresses away. So one night when they went in and there were no mattresses, that was the end of the stage bit with the little people, and that's one way of ending it. And Eric's
Oh,
on; he's watching this. It's not, set, hearsay. It's like that's how they ended that. I always said we do a lot of shtick, but we have to be careful.
wow. Yeah, no shit. Wow.
So he actually said to me, if you ever talk to any of those guys, find out how they knew this story about that. And do you know, or is that another thing that was just came?
Um, do you know of this is just a real asterisk here, as you said, Oyster Cult. Yeah, Long Island band. And what was I going to tell you about this? Oh, yes. There's a guy named Mitch Ben. He's a British comedian, writes funny songs and stuff, and he's really wonderful. And he has a song that is a takeoff on "Don't Fear the Reaper," and it's warning the Reaper to stay away from Bob Dylan. It was during the 2006, and we were losing all these amazing artists. So
Yeah.
it's this song warning death to stay away from. But it's in. I'll send it to you if I can. I'll hook you up to it.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
I love it. So
So,
Spinal
yeah.
Tap 2 coming out. I've seen some clips and things. Paul McCartney has a cameo in this.
I wouldn't call it a cameo. I'd call it a role.
Seriously.
Oh yeah,
Michael.
yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, well, no, I mean, this is me. A cameo
Right.
is when the waiter comes over and oh, it's Clark Gable because this is an MGM
Right.
short.
Right.
I'm going to find out the name of the Mitch band as we speak. Um, yeah, yeah, he's in it. Elton's in it. Um, we got some hot young drummers. Uh, I'm
I'm
not
sure
going to.
Chad wanted to be in it desperately. I'm sure Chad's in it.
Well, absolutely. Chad almost played with us in 19, I'm not making this up, 1991 when we decided to get together and do another album, the Break Like the Wind album, and go on do some touring and have some fun. So before that, we were offered to play the NAMM show. I'm sure you've been to the
Yeah.
NAMM. And so we said, sure, yeah. Well, we don't have a drummer currently. And I introed the Chili Peppers at whatever theater this was, Greek, I think. And they I said, let me call Chad Smith. This is, and I think I got in touch with him. I said, we're playing this gig. Would you learn some Spinal Tap songs? Oh, I already know those. So it was gonna do it. And then Chris had contacted Russ Kunkel, who had been sonically, he's the first drummer of Spinal Tap, really,
Really. And
in
he's still
the
alive. So, wow, that's something.
yeah. Yeah. I took a picture recently of Russ Kunkel with our current drummer. It's kind of cool. Anyway, it's been an adventure the last year and a half or so.
I hope it's been fun revisiting David St. Hubbins and Nigel and
Yeah, yeah. We had to build a little story because, our only appearances have been just performance and
God,
we had to really tell a story this time.
and I try to explain to people how often these moments really do happen. I mean,
Sure.
just recently, I'm good friends with the folks from Foghat. Roger Earl, the drummer, has kept
Uh-huh.
it going. His wife Linda is the manager, knows what she's doing, and who's sitting backstage after the show at Iridium, and Linda's brother, another Roger, is the merch guy, and he's schlepping this big suitcase into backstage with all the shirts and DVDs, and the tile is broken, and as it hits this broken tile into the dressing room, the case jams and he starts to fall forward. I try to get up to catch him, but I'm too far away. The bass player jumps up to catch him, and as Roger leans forward, he hits the poor guy in the balls. And Roger, bass player, falls down. Yeah, Roger, the merch guy, falls down, and they're both screaming in pain and laughing their ass off. And Linda and Roger Earl come back. What's going on? And I said, you do not want to know. No, I need to know. Well, you don't want to know. I said, what happened? I said, I raise a practical concern at this point. Are you going to be playing Stonehenge tomorrow night? Is that sum it up for you? Like, and like
Got it.
every one of, I savor those moments.
Well, when they arise, I heard from Jeff Beck that he and Clapton were playing at um, it was BB King's 75th birthday, I think, at the Apollo, and the two of them literally got lost under the stage,
It's, it's,
and they looked at each other. It's like we're in that movie.
and ever so more fitting because of Jeff Beck and Nigel. I mean, it's undeniable, right? I mean, the hair, that
Oh yeah,
undeniably, that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
Jeff look.
Well, it's just they have a very similar setup,
Countenance, shall we
really.
say? Yeah,
No, I mean, there's a similar profile, really.
yeah.
And the hair, this is the hair we settled on. The way they look is very much a product, a kind of a trial and error thing. By the time we made the first film, that was probably the third wig. And the first one, I had that Jennifer Aniston, but she didn't even catch on, having not been born yet. Uh, no, I guess she'd been born.
Maybe.
Yeah, but by the time we got to that, I want for this guy, for David St. Hubbins to look in the mirror and think, I'm as pretty as Frampton. Not say that aloud.
But that's in here.
Yeah, it's like, because I mean, that was Peter Frampton in the mid 70s was the best looking guy
Absolutely.
ever. Yeah, he's still pretty cute, you got to admit.
Oh yeah.
Hair on his head, still gorgeous man. But yeah, but it was like everyone wanted to be somebody else. Elvis Presley wanted to look like Tony Curtis, so he dyed his hair black. Like, really, you look like Elvis Presley and you want to be like someone else?
Because it was the model that
Yeah, yeah,
by the way, one of my favorite moments, Peter Frampton, he's come up a bunch of times, loveliest guy in the world. And
fabulous.
he had finished Do You Feel Like We Do the Long Thing and finishes, Peter's very short hair and bald on top. And he finished it and he went as he like in
Ah,
that
that's
thing
so
and
cool.
I exploded laughing and nobody else saw it. And he just said, "Thank you, Ken."
That's
It's
awesome. That
like
is awesome.
like that like you got it or you didn't. It was a
I
lovely
had
joke.
one conversation with that guy. It was about 5 minutes, and I thought, oh, he's the real deal.
He really is through and
Yeah.
through. So glad he's
Us,
playing.
us,
Look,
Humble Pie and Camel, those were really good bands anyway. I mean, he was always going to be a superstar.
oh God. So I mean, here we are. It's McCartney's touring. So the Stones last summer, McCartney at the Bowery, incredible. Just who's
Yeah.
stopping? I saw Bob last year. Bob's still out. Nobody's stopping.
Bob.
Bob Dylan. Just
Oh, Bob. That Bob.
oh
I thought you meant Bob
these
Seger, and I
building
thought
blocks, the people who built the
Seger is
house.
kind of retired.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, we live in this kind of, I mean, I don't really because I'm not a musician and I'm an actor. I play some stuff and I write songs and all that stuff kind of like, you know, when it's needed. Um, but for real musicians and just punters like me, um, the time we lived in was kind of a lot of stuff happening. You know, I listened to some of these apps that give you, um, I'm not going to plug them. Sure, I will. There's one called Radio with five O's, and it's just an app, and you get stuff from different decades from all over the world, and it's their choice. They just randomly throw the stuff up. They have demos, they have one-time acetate stuff, and they have enormous hits in Norway. That's like you go, that's one of the best records I ever heard, but
Right.
we didn't hear it because it was 1968 in America. That whole thing, the generations as they go, I think as we got into the 80s, became more and more about personality versus the machine. And some when people could combine it and really make their look and their approach and their, what their text, what they're trying to say, make that, of a piece with something that, is kind of more sophisticated than a guy standing up with a guitar. Or
Yeah. And
I listen to
that's
a cappella stuff and I go, man, that's an art form that's, five people do in the world,
right, right, right.
five groups. They don't
I
even have
it
the Bobs anymore. Remember the Bob? Were you into the
yes, I
Bobs?
do.
Fantastic.
Listen,
Yeah.
skill set and the music business has completely changed now. It's back to just hits and how many images and how many Spotify plays.
Hmm.
And the sad thing is nobody's building a band. Little Steven, my co-host when we
Yeah,
do Live
yeah.
Breakfast of the Beatles, we've been friends for years and
You
always
give him
talks
my
about
best, will you?
it.
Give him a manly hug for me
I
next time.
will for sure.
Yeah.
But we always talks about, Greetings from Asbury Park. Really good album. Didn't set the world on fire. Darkness on the Edge of Town. Didn't set the world on fire. We knew we better hit on the third one or we won't be a fourth. So we worked as hard to try to come up with a hit. And as he said, Pink Floyd, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Obscured by Clouds, Uma Guma,
Mhm.
Adam Hart, Mother, Dark Side of the Moon. But you have to give a bunch of kids
Yeah.
time to learn how to write, to learn what their sound is, to learn to
Yeah.
play. And as he said about the music business, if I can prove to you that you invested here and the payoff is always 5 years later, why do you throw out the band after 2, 3 years?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he said it's not accountants that have ruined the business, it's bad accountants.
Yeah. The other thing is that back in my early days, if the bands started out with a hit, if you were the Buckinghams and you had kind of a drag, if you were, Syndicate of Sound, you had Little Girl, you had big hits. These are top 10 hits. And then it's like, well, what are we? We're not really a band, or we're just starting out and we're all kids and we all have the biggest egos in the world
Right.
because we're getting a lot of dates, as my mother used to call them. And you could substitute whatever word you want,
I think we
plural or
got
singular, it makes no difference.
it.
But it's just, of course, it's going to fall apart. But somebody like obviously Springsteen or Southside Johnny, the same circuit,
Yeah.
which was an amazing band. They're kind of hanging it up now, but
Yeah.
boy, never fail band for me. I really, really love them.
Oh, me too.
Not in, they're not about. Anyway, I've always been a fan.
No,
Yeah.
you know what? It's funny. I just talked with Simon Kirk, the drummer from Bad Company, also
Uh-huh. Yeah,
dear
yeah,
friend, and I congratulated him on Rock Hall of Fame. We talked about Free, and all right now, the number one song for all these years in rock, more than the Bad Company hits. And he said
Mhm.
exactly what you said. He said, we're teenagers. We have this monster hit, and suddenly we're the big deal. He said it was also the albatross around our necks that killed the band. It's why there's no more Free, because they said, okay, kids, we need another one. He goes, we didn't have it. We thought we were writing great songs, but we got lucky and hit this one amazing song that connected around the world. We
Yeah,
didn't have another, and the record company is screaming at us, and we start pointing fingers at each other. And that hit broke us up. We
yeah,
took a deep breath and we tried again. Having learned about that in Bad Company, we learned more about how to navigate it 3, 4 years later. And I thought, it's sad, but it's exactly to your point. You start
yeah.
out with a hit, you better have another one.
Well, in the case of Free, Mr. Kossoff had a lot of kind of personal problems.
Exactly.
He was a brilliant guitar player and
Brilliant.
really creative, and had his own tone. It was like he was one of those things like Dave Gilmour, where it's like, well, we know
We know
exactly who
exactly
that
who
is
it is. Yeah.
playing. Richard Thompson, same way. We know
Yeah.
that's Richard Thompson playing. Um, but he was not present for a lot. He had a lot of drug problems, and oh,
So,
that's a heartbreaking story.
God. Michael, thank you so much for your time with this. Once again, if you can get tickets to this, you must. It's the finest production of a brilliant play I've ever seen. You knocked it out of the park.
Well, you will not be unmoved.
Yeah.
Uh, and, unless you're a complete problem, you're going to laugh. So,
It's hilarious. It's like the marquee stuff. It's hilarious. It's heartbreaking. No, really, it's hilarious. It's
yeah,
heartbreaking. It's tense. It's dramatic. It hits every emotion. You just feel wrung out, and
yeah.
it gives you a new look. We think of salespeople as being sleazy or disgusting. It's sleaze. It's honor. It's every part of it.
Well, Patrick
Nobody
Marber,
in a job doesn't understand the stress of trying to succeed and not doing it.
Patrick Marber was our director, and I think he whipped us into shape, and we were all too dumb to see what he was doing. So it was like the final thing was like, it's okay if you all like each other, and we really, really do. Uh, but remember, this is about cutting the other throat before he gets yours, and whether you're on one side or the other of that cutting, that's the story. And I think it's a wonderful play, and we love doing it every 8 times a week. And yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Brilliantly done.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Ken, my pleasure.
Joyce, the
We
best to
could
you
we
and the
could chew the
family.
fat for many more hours, I'm sure.
Oh, be well. Great show
You
today.
too.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.